Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable show. It's Friday the 12th of January, 2018. We're in the new year, I should say. It's flying as normal as like 2017. And I've got a tight but a really fantastic panel. We might have some of the posse joining us during the show. That normally happens. And we've got some great WordPress discussion stories. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves. Let's start, as we normally do, with Sallie. Would you like to introduce yourself, Sallie?
Certainly. My name is Sallie Goetsch. My business is WP Fangirl. I aim to build profitable websites that are a pleasure to use, and I am the organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup in Oakland, California.
And if you're around that area, go to the website and join Sallie, because it's a fantastic meetup, basically, and they always have fantastic subjects. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name is John Locke. I run a business called Lockdown Design, which provides SEO to blue-collar industries such as manufacturing.
And John does a lot more than that. He's a really fantastic front-end developer, but he knows his SEO really well as well, so it's a powerful combination, folks. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of LifterLMS, which is a WordPress plugin for making, selling, and protecting engaging online courses. I also have a podcast for course creators and membership site people called LMS Cast.
And it's a great plugin, folks. I'm using it myself on a project, and Chris and his team, their support is fantastic as well. Before we go into the stories, I want to talk about the sponsor of the show, which is a fantastic plugin. It's Intelligence WP. And what does the Intelligence WP do? Basically, it helps you with Google Analytics. It kind of puts it on steroids. It really does provide a lot of information which could be useful to yourself and to your clients. And it also provides a really nice interface as well. There's a few plugins doing kind of things, but this is really stands on its own for the amount of functionality it has. They've been sponsoring the show for the past few months, and their support is really appreciated. And go to their website. It's totally free, the plugin. They offer training packages and to kind of hold your hand and show you all the functionality it has. But the actual plugin itself is totally free, so you can try it out, install it, and see if it could help you or your clients. I think it's just fantastic. So let's go into story one, folks, because I was thinking Elementor. We really haven't discussed it. You know, we talked a lot about Beaver Builder because we were all fans of it. But Elementor, they seem to be, a lot of downloads, a lot of usage, and they seem to be totally committed on building this out. And they've just recently had quite a large update where they've had a lot of improvements. Would anybody like to start off with that particular story?
I'll jump in there and say that at LifterLMS, we get a lot of people who are interested in working with page builders like Beaver Builder. I've watched the Elementor community really grow and interest just surging for that platform. In fact, a regular panelist on the show, Adam from WP Crafter, he was mentioning just the other day that in combination with Brainstorm Force, they're rolling out a Elementor plugin that makes it possible to kind of integrate Lifter with Elementor in different ways. So that's just my experience on what I've been seeing. But what I hear from people that they really like about Elementor is the commitment to speed. The template library is massive and incredible. When I look at the template library, I was actually looking at it today in preparation for this episode. I'd like to see more like education, membership, course kind of stuff in there. But, you know, they're going after the big markets first and all that or whatever. But I have just, as a guy who who built up a WordPress plugin business, I've been impressed in watching their trajectory and how they interact with their community, and I'm just impressed, and I'm keeping an eye on how it's going.
Yeah, it's been impressive. I think I'm not totally correct. I think they're based in Israel, are they not?
I believe so.
Yeah. Any thoughts about this, Sallie?
Well, I wish Adam were here, because I think he may be the only one of us who's used it.
No, I've actually been playing around with it.
Or who's used it very extensively. And, it's sort of like Chris, I've heard good things about it. I've noticed that it grows by leaps and bounds, and they keep adding new sort of features and elements. And, their description in this particular post about what they've changed in the new release, it all looks very pretty, and like something that somewhere in my copious spare time I should take a look at. I don't know how many different page builders I want to attempt to have a degree of mastery over, the same as other kinds of things. It's like, well, possibly more than one if there are noticeably different advantages. But there are so many out there that I don't think there's very much point in attempting to try all of them.
Yeah, I suppose WP-Tonic, because we're in a support maintenance role, I've got a couple of clients that use different ones, and so kind to help out, I've had the three that I've concentrated on is Beaver Builder, Elementor, and from Fry Theme Architecture. They're the three that I've got any experience with. I think all three are in a kind of development competition in a way. They've all made enormous strides over the coming months. It's been amazing to watch it, really. Any thoughts about this, John?
Yeah, the two things that stuck out to me with this latest version of Elementor are the autosave function, which means that if you're editing it, it auto-saves. You don't need to click the save button, so if you forget, you don't lose your work. And the other thing that really stood out to me as well is you have the ability to work on a post that's already published, but in a draft mode, which I think is quite ingenious. And basically how that works is if you have something that's already on your site and you need to add something to it, you can basically, it's almost like a clone of that existing post that you can work on in a draft mode and then publish the changes. It's almost like a staging area for just post. But I thought those were ingenious things. So
they really are. And we just had Adam from is he still with? Adam from WP Crafter. Let's go into the better view, actually. WP Crafter join us. So we started off with Elementor. I thought we hadn't really talked much about them, and I thought it's about time that we did, really, Adam, because I know you've been doing a lot of courses. And what's your feeling about how their progress with this new update, really, Adam? How do you think they are competing with the other main contenders in the page building?
Total world domination.
Well, it would be a program, wouldn't it?
Yeah, actually, it was in December I made a video on my channel about the future of Elementor. And the reason I made that was because it was right up at the time, the 1-year anniversary of the paid version. So, it's time to renew if you want to have the next year's updates. And, what's most exciting about this most recent update of 1.9 is what's next, 2.0. And 2.0 is usually when you really push that massive improvement. And one thing I love about what they're doing is, obviously they're not telling everybody what they're doing, but the writing is just on the wall of what's happening with what Elementor is up to. Perfect example is, let me actually just turn off my have one of those like software-based firewalls, and I think sometimes it might block a packet or two. I don't know if my voice is ever choppy, but the writing's on the wall. What they're doing, they want you to build every aspect of your website using Elementor, kind of like Gutenberg. I mean, maybe Gutenberg got the idea from them, you know. So what's coming up in February, most likely, is they've kind of left little clues, but in February 2.0, maybe early March 2.0 is coming out. You're going to be able to make your headers fully with Elementor. They already have navigation widgets. They already have the search widget, which is all the elements you would really need in your header. So you're going to be able to do your whole header, your whole footer, but most excitingly, you're going to be able to do full page and post templates. And, you know, they're calling it they have a in development phrase called their theme builder, but it's really kind of in the mold of Beaver Themer, which if the listeners are familiar with it, makes it super easy to create templates, blog post templates, page templates, or whatever. In fact, Chris is here. I use Beaver Themer to make his learning management system look like Teachable's learning management system, because you can make it, it's so easy to do these things. You can do some really cool, amazing stuff with it.
We certainly do live in interesting times. I just want to quickly ask you, actually, Adam, I was saying earlier on that I see three main players, and that's Elementor, Beaver Builder, and from Fry Theme Architecture. They're the three main players, and they seem to be in earnest competition with one another about how they're building it out. Would you agree?
I never hear anything about Thrive Themes.
I do.
No, because I think because they have refused to follow the license.
GPL.
Yeah, so in some ways they're a bit blackballed a little bit. I've never really got involved with that because I just didn't want to, basically. I'm just surmising it, but thanks for that, Sally. But Adam, would you agree with that? They seem to be the three main players, do they?
Well, actually, there's four, and that would be Divi. That would be Divi. And yeah. A lot of people discredit Divi because everything it builds is like short code. Under the hood is all the short codes. However, it's hard to argue, though. The thing is I think Divi probably takes 50% of the sales that go towards page builders really do go to Divi. I mean, they're pushing massive numbers. Wow. Massive numbers. They are by far, I think, bigger than all of them combined, but they don't have public numbers like that, you know. And but the interesting thing is the only one with like a true freemium model is actually Elementor. I mean, Beaver Builder does have a free page builder, but you're not going to really use that because it's extremely stripped down.
I do.
The free version of Beaver Builder?
Because I want to do 90% of my code as code, but the free version lets you structure your layout quite tidily, and then you can stick widgets in it for, you know, a lot of the other functions. But yes, it is very, you know, I think that's not that's not going to be sort of the common path of how people are looking at Beaver Builder. They want all of those elements that, you know, help you avoid writing your own code.
Yeah, I think that's really well pointed out, because I think, as you were saying that, Sally, that I think there's definitely different users and different user kind of scenarios, isn't there, Adam? Like with Fry Themes, I tend to use it because I'm more interested in making landing pages and making landing pages for clients, because sometimes they ask us to do that, and we do it for them. And I just got really Shane, the CEO of Fry Theme. You know, I've been following his blog, and he's been on the podcast, and I tried to get him on earlier on the end of last year, and he was just too busy. But I really respect him and his team, and his knowledge about online marketing. So that's what I tend to use it. Where the other two, I think they're focused more, you know, but I think there's different scenarios, isn't there, Adam?
Well, yeah, there's different users. Like, so Sally's coming from a developer's perspective, where she's still she's capable of doing a lot of the heavy lifting still herself. And this is maybe like a new thing, like even choosing to do some of it in a page builder. And so there's definitely that slice. I think the bigger slice of people that are using these are non-coder designers. That's a huge chunk of the market. And that's what really is driven Divi and Elementor is these designers. So think about it. Say you're a graphic design company for maybe a print shop and you have hundreds of businesses that do business with you yearly and they love you. You're an amazing designer and your clients now might ask you for a website. You don't have to hand it off to someone. You could learn how to use Divi or Elementor, which gives you these design features, which some of them are kind of lacking in a Beaver builder. So you do definitely have these different user groups, and you were just explaining how for the whole segment of the market that's into this fancy thing called funnels, sales funnels and landing pages and all that kind of stuff. Well, they jump first to the Thrive products because that's kind of their focus. Their focus has traditionally been that market, and they actually have some real exciting stuff coming out. I'm not allowed to talk about it. But I could say if you looked at Thrive Architect's sales page and you scroll down to the bottom, it says what's coming next. And it's really amazing what's about to come out. I just started using it a couple days ago and I'm pretty impressed with it. And I think if you're into landing pages, conversion rate optimization and all that, you're going to have to give a double look at Thrive Architect and what they're about to be releasing.
Yeah, you can definitely see almost divergence in the different products already, and I think that's going to accelerate and continue.
Well, I think it has to, because they need to differentiate themselves from each other. But the elephant in the room here in the page building department is that I still encounter a lot of people who have foolishly bought a theme that is bundled with Visual Decomposer.
Well, yeah, but we try and get them off it as much as possible.
Yeah, well, I've pretty much decided that the only thing I'm going to do on any site with Visual Decomposer is switch to something else because it's not just that plugin, but I think a lot of the themes that bundle it make various kinds of mistakes on top of bundling plugins in, and then there's just a terrible mess.
We won't. I had to put my foot down. Really, we won't support. We do. It's not. We try and be as flexible as possible, but we've made it quite clear with clients now that we're not prepared to go down a track that leads nowhere. We're trying to build out new pages using that. We maintain the existing site and we give them some training and help as much as possible. But they want something larger and they want us to support them in that journey. They're going to have to choose something a bit better.
Well, and there's some cracks in that right now too. Slowly, theme developers are instead choosing Elementor because it's free and it's very easy to write new modules for it. So slowly what you're seeing is this trend. Well, there's lots of different transitions, right? But that's one of the transitions that's already starting to happen. You're seeing themes instead of going Visual Composer, going the Elementor route. And it's actually smart. If I was a theme developer, if I was developing anything, I would connect myself to the Elementor bandwagon because they have so much fire and momentum and such a hungry group of users that, not to be shameless here, they'll buy anything you throw at them. How about that? You know what I mean? Even with Chris and his learning management system, we had a call and I said, you really got to consider, hooking onto this Elementor thing. And they're, if you're a development company, you already have limited resources to begin with. So I'm working with someone else to build Elementor integration with LifterLMS because that's just what you want to hook yourself onto. If you're making a plugin, a theme, or anything, you want to hook yourself onto that.
Yeah,
Do you have
right.
any news? Do you mind if I ask, like, when that's rolling out, or any further update on that?
Yeah, the proof of concept is pretty close to being built, and so I'll test it. Definitely going the MVP, minimum viable product route, and reduced it to the minimum of what I think really needs to be there. And I think we're probably just a matter of days away on that.
Awesome.
Just days away, which is exciting for me. Essentially, his product, LifterLMS, with this free plugin, is going to be deeper integrated with Elementor. So you can show an Elementor page instead of your course page. So you can have true sales pages dynamically. If someone's on your, I'm probably going down a rabbit hole on here, but it's going to be good. It's going to be free. And if you follow WP Crafter, you'll be knowing all about it.
I won't worry, Adam. I've never been known to go down a rabbit hole.
We enjoy hearing you rant, Adam.
Yeah, so I do that a lot.
Never happened to me. Never. All right, I think we're going to go for our break, and we're going to come back, and we've got a couple great stories. I've got a feeling that the second story might take up the whole second half, actually, because it's an amazing post, really. Be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. Got a great panel. I think we've had a great discussion already. I just think it's fabulous. And we're coming back with our second story, and that's from Pippin Wilson. He did I think it's quite an amazing post, really, when you really delve in all the areas.
Pippin had quite a year.
He's like a cat, isn't he? He really has like 5 normal lives in 1 year than a person would have in 5 years plus, wouldn't he? But it certainly covered a lot of subjects here that I want to discuss. Does any of the panel want to start off?
Okay, I'll just start off, and then we can pass it off to Chris or something, because he has a software company as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are really into services. What I do is kind of a product. I'm producing video content, and there's a large audience there. One of the things I was actually inspired in reading this article, or I would say one of the key takeaways, was I'm really inspired how he pulled himself. He writes in the article about how he's just looking at his business and he realizes he doesn't really have a role in the business because he's built such a good team that he doesn't even have to participate in the day-to-day, and he can focus on other things. But it's really, now what do I focus on? And I really am inspired by that, because it's kind of a goal that I have in a certain respect for me. When you have a business, there's so many tasks that need to get done. You've got to be willing to let go of tasks and hire someone to do it, or get some help, so that you're focused. Your time is only spent on what you are best at. And obviously, when you're first starting a business or starting to sell a product, you're not able to do that, and that's fine, right? You have to be the one to make this thing work. But then once it starts working, and once it starts making some money, then you should part with your money a little bit and start hiring a lot of this stuff out, so you can get back to a normal life. Because ultimately, you just end up creating a job for yourself, a highly demanding job, if you can't learn to let go, if you can't learn to trust people. Obviously, it appears like he's really hired the best people, and he doesn't take advantage of them. He not only hires the best people, he pays them well. He sees he's committed to them and them doing well. And even to the extent towards the end of the article where he gave a good chunk of his business to several of the key players in his business so that they could be stakeholders, which is good. And I've done that in prior businesses as well. That's something everybody should do, because it's not hard to give a good portion of it away. The only thing I think what's that?
I totally agree with you. I just want to go over quick synopsis of the key points I got from it, because it's multi-layered, and all of you, the panel, get something different from this post. obviously area might, there's multiple areas that would interest Chris here, but even the broadband connection in a rural area, I don't know what kind of problems you've had, Chris. So that's a subject in its own right. And then you've got his experiences about really not closing down, but stopping the third party extension and buying those and the decisions around that. And then you got his decision to increase the prices generally and all the flack that he got from that. And there was quite an interesting post, I think it was at the beginning of the year, where he was looking at at the figures, and he wasn't very happy. And I looked at the figures and I thought, I wouldn't be very happy either. And how that was reducing his ability for choices and a roadmap around some of these key plugins. But there's also other areas where I disagree with Pippin in a way. I see the logic. I am not a big fan of automatic renewal. I never have been, but I totally understand it. And also you've got the area where he's removing discount if you renew for the second year. Traditionally in the WordPress plugin system, you get a discount to renew after the first year. He's removing that as well. He's decided to remove it from his key products. So there's a lot of areas to cover in this post, isn't there?
There really is.
So, Chris, would you
I just want to add just a couple points for the listener. Some other things in the article were that overall Pippin's business did $2.3 million last year, which is a lot. And his team, I forget the exact number, somewhere around 13 people.
Yeah, 13, 14, isn't it?
And his flagship products are Affiliate WP, Restrict Content Pro, Easy Digital Downloads. Those are kind of the main ones. One of the things I just want to note from observation in the WordPress ecosystem is if you look at entrepreneurship from an angle of ubiquity, like if you're going to invent something and like lots of people need it, that's like a secret to, for example, billionaire Mark Cuban's success in the businesses he chose to go into. Some people end up there accidentally. Some people end up there intentionally. We were just talking about Elementor. And Beaver Builder. Page builders is a very ubiquitous need in the whole website, online business thing. Some of Pippin's businesses, like e-commerce with easy digital downloads, similar to WooCommerce, is a very gigantic, ubiquitous market. But in terms of his story, I also just want to note, I did recently interview Pippin on my podcast. That episode has not gone live yet, but we go into depth on a lot of these topics. So this is in February 2017 or January 2017. So that'll probably roll out February 2017 on the LMS cast. But one of the interesting things about Pippin that I really admire is it's easy to get really consumed by your business. Pippin's chosen to remain, where he grew up or around friends and family. I believe in Kansas. He has a connection to the land. He does like retreats with his people where they get offline and do stuff like that. And he also started a brewery. He's like a creative guy, and that's just a passion of his, which is great. And it just shows some balance and maturity. And we get into some of the story behind all that in our episode. But as another plugin business, the concept of, evolving work on your business, not in your business, and achieving that milestone and building a great team, I thought that was really good. And just to really, for the listener out there, if you're not familiar with who Pippin Williamson is, he is in his 20s. So he has accomplished all this at an incredibly young age. And
he looks younger.
Yes, I know. No, Pippin is the kind of person who makes all the rest of us feel like slackers.
Yeah, I'm a slacker.
And we mentioned 3 plugins. He's actually got about 200. Many of those are free. Some aren't that big, but he's prolific. But some of the points I found really interesting, besides the great, entrepreneurial milestones there and the stable business and everything, is the decision to shut down a marketplace. Because in the WordPress ecosystem, the community is very important. And I just found that interesting. I think sometimes the open source world can learn a little bit from the corporate world. So this whole thing of like acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions, and, you know, making strategic decisions and acquiring these small companies or products just to bring it all under one roof and one management, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's really important.
You know, just interrupt slightly. As you were saying that, I was thinking about what Adam was saying about if you're a developer, hoist your flag to Elementor, you know. But there's a slight danger. You know, what happens if Elementor comes to you and you've developed a business and say, well, we want to make you an offer that you cannot refuse, you know. You know, nothing's black and white in business, is it, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's always about focus on, you know, the end customer, and everybody's going to win. And I mean, do business deals where everybody, you know, walks away with a winner. You know, that's what it's all about. But yeah, it is always, it can be risky when you're entangled in the same way that we're all entangled to WordPress, and we're like, what's going on with Gutenberg? Like, that's part of community. That's just part of the game of life. So, but yeah, overall, I think it's a fantastic article. Pippin is an amazing writer. I'd encourage everybody to go check that out and read his story. And also, if you know a young entrepreneur especially, it's a good story to share with somebody who's up and coming, just as an example of what people can do starting at a young age.
Yeah. Before we move on to the other, you know, John and Sally, and what did you sense why the decision to bring in-house the other, you know, that you had quite extensive library of third-party extension plugins. You brought in about 30 of them. Some, you know, you made offer. Most people were happy to take it. I'm sure that's the truth. But what do you sense why that decision was made, actually, Chris?
I don't know 100%, but in my experience in talking to other plugin owners and in my personal experience too, there's a lot of issues at play. One of them is support. And typically, if you're a third-party add-on and you're not like the lion's shares of the sales, you know, you're not as incentivized to you know, be in it, you know, just cranking on the support, continually improving the product. If you're not getting the big sales that the main core product is getting, and you're an add-on for some niche scenario, I think there's just it's easy to fizzle out. Like, it's hard enough just to get a plugin launched, and then it's a whole other level of commitment to continuously improve it while maintaining incredibly high support standards. Tell me. So I think that's what happened. It's just a maturity thing of like, let's get this all under one roof. You know, they probably paid as best as they could for, you know, to acquire those plugins. I bet some of those plugin owners were happy to take that money and go do something else. Or
I'm sure they were. It's just so interesting because, you know, kind of as I was reading that bit, Chris, I was thinking the difference between some of the form plugins. Like Gravity's always had a set of plugins where you got the developer's license, then you have access, and they've all some have been developed, but they keep it in-house, and then you only get those additional functionality if you buy the developer license of Gravity Form, where other forms have a kind of, the base product is free, and then you can buy a whole packages of, and some of them develop third party and some of them aren't. It's a very diverse landscape, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, it's add-ons, bundles, and freemium, and you can do all kinds of different combinations there.
But it's also hard. I mean, if you're making an add-on plugin for someone else's product, and that product is already a niche, so now you're a niche in a niche, you know, I think a lot of those plugins probably shouldn't have been sold. It was probably a developer that built something that they needed themselves. They figure, let me just toss it in this marketplace. There wasn't some big commitment behind it, you know. Like, for instance, I was talking about the plugin I'm making for Chris's plugin. I'm not selling that. I'm just going to toss that sucker in the repo and people can have at it, you know, and it's going to be MVP, little to no support's needed. I don't want any money from it. Everyone can have it, make it better. But I think you have a lot of that at play too. I don't want to offend anyone. Developers are not the best business owners. They really need to learn to be a business owner. Just because you can develop and put a price tag on something doesn't mean that you know about all the other 90% of what's involved. That's why development teams work well. Like Chris has Tom, right? Thomas. I know it. I wasn't thinking. You have Thomas. Thomas doesn't want to deal the front end stuff, and you don't want to probably do the stuff that Thomas is doing. You make a beautiful pair.
I can't write a line of PHP. You guys all write better code than me.
Yeah.
Have you let him out of the coding cave lately? Has he seen daylight?
Yeah,
he needs some sun.
Thomas is actually leading the he took over leadership of the Los Angeles WordCamp, so that's something exciting for 2018.
Wow, well, that's great news. Sallie, what did you think of the any key points that you thought were powerful from it?
A couple of things. The first time I read the article, what really caught my eye was the closing of the marketplace, and it, because I somehow hadn't heard about that. I'd heard about the price increases and the renewals and some of these things, and we talked about a few of them on the show, but somehow that had passed my attention, and it was surprising at first, but their logic, that as they explained it was quite clear that they were able to both, save money on commissions, make money by owning those extensions and selling them themselves, and, make sure that things were better supported. But the thing that really struck me the second time I was reading it was where Pippin was talking about how basically he sort of promoted himself out of a job, or not exactly out of a job, but out of, the not only the job he started with, but something that he had really enjoyed and been good at. I don't think anybody would suggest that Pippin is not good as a developer, and therefore it's better that somebody else do those things, right? But that it kind of comes back to the the saying that the two great disappointments in your life are not getting what you want and getting it. That he'd aimed to come to that point, to have a business that would survive without him and keep going if anything happened to him, but that he hadn't really thought about, well, what was his role going to be, and what was he going to be needed for, and that being needed was important. And it's a reminder that this is a thing that you need to think about as you are planning that, expansion and growth is, what is your job going to be then if it isn't what you started as? And to Adam, I just want to say, it's not just developers who are not naturally suited to being business owners. It's
attorneys.
It's absolutely everybody, all those people who, I got laid off from my corporate job. I will be, I'm going to become a consultant, and they know absolutely nothing about running a business. They're accustomed to having somebody else take care of all of the marketing and the invoicing and the, all of the things that mean that when you're self-employed, you don't, have nearly as many available billable hours as you did as an employee.
Yeah, it's true. John, before I ask you for your own reflections on the article, one area that also, not offering a discount when people renew their license. What's your feelings about that? Because it's been a tradition, and I, in some ways I disagree with him not offering a discount anymore. But maybe, it's not a black and white, is it, John? So
I just want to throw in real quick that I agree with this decision just because of the in order for the sustainability of the project in terms of continuous improvement and support, I believe in not discounting automatic renewals. If there's going to be discounts on the front end, that makes sense, but it's just
everybody flapped all over the place when WooCommerce decided to stop doing that. But, it's either, if you are discounting renewals, it increases your need to get more new people signing up at full price. And then sort of the new customer is your bigger focus. And I'm sure everybody does want to continually get new customers for their products. And if you're discounting the initial buy, then in a way you have more incentive to keep people coming back so that they're paying you, higher prices. And either way can provoke people to be annoyed. If your first year of something is at a huge discount, it can seem sort of unfair that as a loyal customer who's coming back, you're not getting a discount. But I think it's partly just, people get used to something being one way and they object when it changes. And, as with a lot of these things, I'm pretty sure that after a year or two, nobody will even remember that it was different.
Well, we'll see. What's your feeling, Sean?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Chris and Sallie. I think this was a price adjustment, and I think you're going to see more of this in the WordPress ecosystem. I think that Pippin did the right thing, because I admire what he did, because all the decisions that he made were aiming toward long-term sustainability and him being able to do with his company, giving him the room to do the things that he needed to do. I think just because every WordPress plugin company traditionally gives a discount on renewal doesn't mean that that's the way it should be. And just because other people do it doesn't mean that it should be that way, because in SaaS products, you don't see that. Nobody gives you a discount when you're new. The price increases, I think, were also an adjustment because, and here's my feeling on this. If you're paying $300 a year for a plugin that literally runs your business, that's only $25 a month. If you can't cover that cost, then you need to rethink your business, I guess. But acquiring all the plugins, that was another thing. That money becomes that they were paying out in commissions now goes directly back into the business, and he is using that to do things like build a cushion for times when revenue might downturn, and also to make his business sustainable and to pay his employees a fair, decent living wage, because I think that's something that we still see a lot of in the WordPress ecosystem, is people being taken advantage of and not being paid at similar rates that they would be able to get in other web ecosystems. So I admire him. And the last thing that really stands out to me is he's still involved in his local community. He took some, not only did he buy some land there in Kansas, but like a lot of rural areas, like where I came from, and we're seeing it out here. We live in a kind of the outskirts of Sacramento, but we're seeing development come here. What he's doing is he bought I think he said it was 3 acres to be a green belt, because he knows that it's going to be developed there soon. And that happens in a lot of places. So I admire him for all those reasons. He takes care of his people. He's running a solid business. He makes wise decisions that are meant to sustain his business, and he's involved in his local community. You can really tell that he cares about people, and it's not just about what he can squeeze out of them. He actually cares. So
it's funny, the customer might think, with the price increases. I wonder if pricing, the non-renewal, the zero renewal discount does not work unless you're also doing the automatic renew. Because think about it, if you're given an email and you're given the decision to renew versus it happening automatically and just being oh, whatever. I know sometimes I'll have an auto renewal. I'm whatever, I'll cancel it next year. I won't even bother taking the time to cancel it, because it just takes too much time. Anyways, but that is good stuff.
No, I just think, like I say, like most things, it's not black and white, is it? There's
No.
all different points of view in there, Adam. I feel that I'm in the middle between you, Adam, and what Sallie and some of the other panelists have said about this. But definitely, looking at the figures that you published like 18 months ago, I felt myself, you know, you've got no alternative. You're going to have to put, and I think, yeah, especially on the easy digital downloads, it like what John said, you know, it's such a big, if it's a core plugin if you're using it, aren't you, John? You know, and like you say, if you can't afford $300 a year, for, not a minor plugin, but a core plugin, if you can't afford $300 a year, you've got a problem, haven't you? You've got a problem.
You've got a lot more problems than your plugins at that point.
Well, my point is more, are you actually leaving money on the table by not giving the discount? Because you've got all your buyers, 100% of them. A percentage of them, they for the convenience, it's no big deal, right? I could care less if you charge me more. I don't care. I just want the convenience of the updates and all that kind of stuff. But then you have another segment that's like, if there's no incentive for me to actually renew this thing, there's no discount, maybe I'll renew it in a year. You know, it's working fine right now. I'll just shut it all down. I mean, I'll run everything, but I just won't get the updates and the support. I don't need support. You know, it's not that big of a deal. But there is definitely a segment of the market like that, that kind of feels that. That's why I think the zero discount will not work unless you're automatically renewing. I think that would be an interesting thing to discover.
Well, apparently, even when you are giving discounts for renewal, you know, the number of renewals when you automate it is just exponentially more.
It is.
Than if you leave it up to people to do themselves. And, you know, as a consumer, I'm not thrilled by automatic renewals for most things. And I'm especially not thrilled if there's a situation where you get penalized for canceling your renewal. But you know, it is logical, and you're dealing with software. You're dealing with the fact that, you know, WordPress changes rapidly, and plugins frequently need to change in conjunction with that in order to keep working. So, you know, you are setting yourself up for trouble if you don't keep things up to date, and some people won't.
No. Well,
but you know, there is a there should be enough of an incentive to update, unless you've decided you're just not going to update anything.
Yeah.
And then you're basically waving a big flag saying, "Please hack me."
Exactly. I think Adam put a really good point, and so you, Sallie. I have some concerns because but on the other hand, I agree with John. You know, and the figures don't lie. What I think, what is, especially in the SaaS, what you normally do, you do get a discount if you pay up front for the whole year. If you're prepared to pay up front, you get a sizable discount. If you want to keep on paying monthly, it's at one rate, and you get, you know, or some don't. They only offer a minor discount. And, you know, I've been looking at my the SaaS products that I buy, and I've cut and I look for ones that offer me, do I really need this service? Do I really need this product? And secondly, if I really need it, do they offer me a really good discount if I pay up front? And I go for the ones that can do the job, that offer me a good discount up front, because I need them and I find them useful. And I think that's a better business model, really, and that will encourage people to renew, that they pay up front. What do you think of that, Adam?
I think what's happening, and it is what it is, right? So WordPress is real young. The whole marketplace is really young of selling stuff. It really is. And people were trained a certain way. I think new people coming into WordPress, if everything's the easy digital download way, that's fine, because there's no prior being used to buying lifetime licenses and getting renewal discounts and all that. It's kind of what you walk into. We've just been trained to discount, and we have these expectations as people that have bought plugins and themes. We just have these expectations that I think are slowly peeling away. Remember the days when everything was a lifetime license? That is gone. That is predominantly gone. Or if a lifetime license is available, it's very expensive. But that wasn't the case 4 years ago. 4 years ago, everything was lifetime license. Now we're fine with it. So I think over time, we're going to start being fine with it. And I know of one plugin that's premium priced, zero renewal and all that. And what they do is if you don't renew, you can't access the functions of the plugin. But they don't make that blatantly obvious up front. I don't want to see that happen, I don't want to see that happen.
Well, I agree with you, but on the other hand, on a SaaS model, if you stop paying,
but see, the SaaS model, it's not an apple to oranges comparison, though, right? On a SaaS model, what your expenses are different than what your expenses are selling free software. So when you're selling GPL software, your expenses are development and support. Those are like the big expenses, right? But when it's SaaS, you have to host things, and the amount of depending on what the SaaS is, the storage rates that you pay on Amazon, because everybody's got their stuff on Amazon. There's different expense breakdown.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
But I think that is mainly the thing that differentiates something being a product from being a service. If it's a product,
software as a service, yeah.
Yes. I mean, and even if it's software as a service, it's the service part, which means that if you don't pay, it isn't there. And and I think that is kind of the new baseline in WordPress products is, what you pay for essentially are the support and the updates. If the software itself is GPL, then there it is. It's out there. But if you want it supported or updated, you have to pay for that, and that's reasonable. I mean, it was never realistic to sell lifetime licenses to things that were going to need support. Support is your biggest expense in software.
Well, it's okay. You're a startup. You're trying to get traction, so you offer lifetime. For the first 200, whatever the scenario is, and everybody knows. And then you might, you can put a time limit. There's all sorts of ways of approaching this. I think we're going to wrap it up. I'm not going to go for story 3, folks, because I think we've had a fantastic discussion. Adam, how can people get hold of you and learn more about what you're up to, Adam?
I want to drop one idea for a future discussion.
Yeah, good.
The ability of actually selling one thing he mentioned briefly in his article was can I sell easy digital downloads? I question whether you can really sell, like how many successful examples are there of selling a GPL-based product business, when it's free anyway. Obviously, WooCommerce is probably the only exception. I don't think there's been a lot of selling transactions that have been successful and good for both sides. Anyways, different discussion.
I think that's a fantastic topic. I'll just quickly reply to you. I think that's been more down to the actual the way the market was formulated, and the way, WordPress is totally free. It's, it's easy to install. It's easy this, easy that, there's no cost to it. The kind of storyline that Automatic kind of put forward, and Matt and blah, 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 I think that has had more of a consequence with what you've just said, to it actually being open source in a way, but I might be totally wrong there. Chris, you never did tell us, how can people get hold of you, Adam?
You can visit my website, WPCrafter.com, or if you want to access any of the 300 free videos, tutorials on WordPress, it's youtube.com/WPCrafter. Leave a comment. I'd be happy to start talking with you there.
Yeah, it's great. And Chris, how can people find out more about you and just listen to your wise words, Chris?
Wise words are on LMS Cast. It's a podcast. And I just want to put a bow on a final thought in the WordPress community. For paid products, we are paying for access to support and updates. But there's a third nuance that sometimes gets missed, which is if it is a bundle situation, whether it's Gravity or we have some bundles at Lifter, adding new products inside the bundles or new third-party integrations, that's another thing that you're kind of paying for in that renewal. So it's not just updates and support. It's also sometimes entirely new products. I'm Chris Badgett, the co-founder of LifterLMS, and you can find me on Twitter too, @ChrisBadgett.
Great. And Sallie, how can people find out more about you, Sallie?
You can find me at WPFangirl.com, at eastbaywp.com, or I am at Sallie Goetsch on Twitter.
And my former great co-host, friend, Wise, Developer, and Console. How can people find out about you, John?
You can find me at my website, which is lockdowndesign.com. I'm lockdown_ on Twitter and lockdown design on Facebook. Check it out.
Oh, you do. And I always read some of John's posts, and I Twitter them out, don't I, John?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I do. That's great. And if you want to find more about me, go to my Twitter feed at Jonathan Denwood. Go to the Facebook page. Still haven't done anything about the group. And I just want to do a plug for our Friday show. If you go down to the footer of the WP-Tonic, it says Friday shows. And if you want to join us, you want to join the panel, if you've got a plugin, a service, a presentation that you've done at a WordCamp and you want to talk some more about it, anything that you think the WordPress community would benefit, there's a form on that page and you fill it in, and if I think it's a great subject, we have a chat and you can join us on the Friday show in the second half and we can discuss whatever subject you want to bring up, and the panel can interview you as well. If that sounds of interest, go to that page. So we're going to wrap it up now, folks, and thank you for listening. I think it's been a great round table and we've covered a lot of interesting subjects. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye. Stop.